Most people break rules without ever learning why those rules existed in the first place. They see a restriction that seems arbitrary, a protocol that feels excessive, an instruction that makes no logical sense in the moment it is given to them, and they make a choice. The rule is broken. Nothing happens immediately, and the person assumes the rule was exactly what it seemed: unnecessary, outdated, someone else's paranoia written into policy. But some rules are not arbitrary. Some rules exist because something happened to someone before you. Something specific, something documented, something bad enough that someone sat down afterward and wrote explicit instructions designed to ensure it would never happen to anyone else the same way. Those rules do not advertise their purpose. They do not explain themselves. They simply exist. And the people who break them find out why they shouldn't have. You're watching the Nightmare Index. If you are new here, subscribe, tap the like, and hit the notification bell so you never miss any of our uploads. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell me where in the world you are watching from and what time it is on your clock right now. Now, let's begin. There is a document in a file somewhere that explains exactly why the protocols at Ridgeway Station exist. I have never seen that document. I do not think I ever will. But I know now, with absolute certainty, that it is real, that someone wrote it, and that everything in it is true. Because I broke the protocols, and I found out why they were there. My name is Blake Harriman, and I worked as a fire lookout in the Cascade Range for 1 full season. It was supposed to be a 6-month contract, May through October, stationed alone at a remote observation post, monitoring for smoke, logging weather data, maintaining radio contact with the Forestry Service twice daily. I made it to September. The job came with a handbook, 43 pages, most of it standard: water purification, wildlife awareness, emergency contact procedures, how to operate the radio and weather equipment. Then there was Section 7. Mandatory evening protocols. It was 3 pages long. It was the most specific section in the entire handbook, and it made absolutely no sense. The protocols were presented as wildlife management guidelines, but they were not like any wildlife guidelines I had ever read. Protocol 1. Between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m., all exterior lighting must be turned off, on no exceptions. No headlamps, no flashlights, no lanterns visible through windows. Protocol 2. All window coverings must be closed completely by 7:45 p.m. every evening, regardless of season or daylight hours remaining. Protocol 3. Between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m., I was not permitted to open the exterior door for any reason, unless it was a life-threatening emergency requiring immediate evacuation. Protocol 4. If I heard vocalizations outside the station between dusk and dawn, I was to log the time and duration, but I was not to attempt to identify the source or investigate in any way. Protocol 5. All food waste must be stored in the designated exterior bear locker no later than 6 p.m. daily. After 6 p.m., no waste of any kind was to be taken outside until after sunrise. To Protocol 6, and this was the one that felt strangest. If I observed coordinated movement of multiple animals within visual range of the station after dark, I was required to report it immediately via radio and remain inside with all protocols enforced until receiving clearance from the supervising ranger. I read Section 7 4 times the first night. It felt like the kind of thing someone writes after watching too many horror movies about the woods. My supervisor, a woman named Christine Voss, 20-year forestry veteran, no nonsense to the point of bluntness, delivered my supplies the second week I was there. I asked her about the protocols. She looked at me for a long moment before answering. You follow those exactly as written. You do not improvise. You do not test them. You do not skip a single step because you think you know better. I asked why. Because they exist for a reason, Blake. That is all you need to know. I asked what happened to the last person who had this post. Sullivan finished his contract and transferred to a different region. He followed the protocols. That is why he finished his contract. She left 20 minutes later. I followed the protocols exactly for the first 6 weeks. Then I started noticing things. The station sat at just over 6,200 feet, surrounded by dense pine forest on 3 sides, and a sheer drop on the 4th, where the ridge fell away into a canyon. Visibility was exceptional during the day. I could see for miles in every direction, and the solitude was exactly what I had signed up for. At night, it was different. The forest was not quiet. I'm not talking about normal night sounds, branches moving in wind, the occasional rustle of a small animal, the distant call of an owl. I'm talking about vocalizations I could not identify. They started around 10 p.m. most nights. Low, resonant sounds that did not match any animal I knew. Not howls, not growls. Something between the two, modulated, almost tonal, like a note being held and bent slightly flat. I logged them as required by Protocol 4. I did not investigate. But I started wondering, if these were just normal wildlife sounds, why was there an entire protocol about not investigating them? That question should have been enough. It was not. The 8th week, I broke Protocol 1. It was early August. The days were still long, but the sun had set just after 8, and I had closed the window coverings and killed the exterior lights per the protocols. I was reading by headlamp inside. That was allowed, as long as no light was visible from outside. When I heard the vocalization start, closer than usual, much closer. I turned off my headlamp and waited. The sound came again, just outside the western wall of the station, 30 feet away at most. I wanted to see what it was. I told myself it was part of my job to monitor wildlife behavior. I told myself one small light, just for a moment, would not matter. I turned on my headlamp, moved to the window, and lifted the edge of the covering just enough to look out. There were 6 of them, coyotes. That was my first thought. They were the right size, the right general shape in the darkness, but they were standing completely still. All 6 of them, evenly spaced in a loose semicircle facing the station, not moving, not vocalizing now, just standing there. I have seen coyotes before. They do not behave like this. They move, they pace, they travel in loose, chaotic groups, not formations. These animals were positioned like they had been placed there deliberately. I kept the light on. I kept watching. And then, all 6 of them turned their heads to face the window at exactly the same time. Not one, then the others following. All of them. Simultaneously. Precise. I dropped the covering. I turned off my headlamp. I stood in the dark for the next 4 hours and did not move until sunrise. The vocalizations continued outside until just after midnight. Then they stopped. When I opened the coverings the next morning, there was nothing outside. No tracks in the soft dirt near the station. No scat. No sign that anything had been there at all. I did not report what I had seen. I told myself I had misinterpreted normal animal behavior in low light. I told myself coordinated movement was a trick of shadow and perspective. I told myself I had followed the protocols afterward, and nothing had happened, so there was no reason to escalate. But I started reading Section 7 differently after that night. The protocols were not about managing wildlife. They were about managing me, keeping me inside, keeping me dark, keeping me unnoticed. The question I should have asked was, unnoticed by what? 3 weeks later, I broke Protocol 3. It was late September. The nights were colder now, dropping into the 40s after sunset. and I had started keeping the small interior wood stove going through the evening. I was running low on firewood. The woodshed was 20 feet from the station door, an easy walk, less than a minute round trip. It was 9:47 p.m. Protocol 3 was in effect. No opening the exterior door, except for life-threatening emergencies. But I was not going far. I was not investigating anything. I just needed wood. This is how it always starts. The rule seems excessive in the specific moment it applies. You are careful, you are quick. You tell yourself it will be fine. I opened the door. The temperature outside had dropped further than I expected. It felt closer to freezing than the 40s. My breath condensed immediately in the still air. The forest was silent, completely silent. No wind, no insects, no vocalizations, nothing. And I've spent enough time in the wilderness to know that total silence is not normal. There is always something making noise. Branches settling, small animals moving, the distant sound of water or wind. This was absence. I walked to the woodshed anyway. I loaded 6 split logs into the canvas carrier and turned back toward the station. That is when I saw them. Not 6 this time. 14. Coyotes, or animals that looked like coyotes in the dark, standing at the edge of the clearing in a line that stretched the entire width of the open ground between the forest and the station. Evenly spaced, completely still. All of them facing me. I was exactly halfway between the woodshed and the door. I did not run. I do not know why I did not run. I walked, slowly, steadily, back toward the station, watching them the entire way. They did not move. They did not vocalize. They just stood there. I reached the door. I stepped inside. I closed it and locked it, and leaned against it in the dark, my heart slamming so hard I could feel it in my throat. I did not turn on any light. I moved to the window and lifted the covering just enough to look out. They were gone. All of them. In the 10 seconds it had taken me to step inside and move to the window, they had vanished completely. No movement, no sound of retreat. Just gone. I reported it the next morning. I used the mandatory radio check-in to inform Christine Voss that I had observed coordinated movement of multiple animals within visual range of the station after dark, as required by Protocol 6. There was a long silence on her end. Fundendorm, how many? 14. Another silence. Did you go outside? I hesitated. Blake, did you go outside after dark? I needed firewood. The silence that followed was the longest yet. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was not anger. It was something closer to resignation. You are going to find something in that station. I do not know where Sullivan left it, but I know he left it there because he told me he was going to. When you find it, read it. Then call me back. The radio went dead. It took me 3 hours to find it. I tore that station apart, checked every drawer, every cabinet, every storage box, every panel that looked even slightly loose. I found it behind the weather log shelf, a composition notebook, the kind you buy at any drugstore. Black and white marbled cover. Maybe 60 pages, and half of them filled with handwritten entries. The first page had a name and a date. Sullivan, Meboiten. The entry below, it was short. If you are reading this, you have already broken at least one protocol. Do not break any more. I am writing this because I wish someone had written it for me. I sat down. I read the entire notebook in one sitting. Sullivan had been assigned to Ridgeway Station the year before me. Same 6-month contract, same handbook, same protocols. He had followed them exactly for the first month. Then he started breaking them, the same way I had, for the same reasons. a small light to see what was making the sounds outside, a quick trip to the woodshed after dark. Each time he saw the same thing I had seen. Animals. He called them coyotes. But he noted multiple times that their behavior was wrong, appearing in coordinated groups, standing motionless, watching the station. But he had kept breaking protocols, and he had documented what happened when he did. June 9th, broke Protocol 5 tonight. Left food waste in the interior trash instead of taking it to the bear locker before 6 p.m. Took it out at 9:15 p.m. They were already there when I opened the door. 23 of them this time, arranged in 3 rows. I dropped the waste bag and went back inside. When I looked out 10 minutes later, the waste bag was gone. No drag marks, no sign of scavenging, just gone. June 22nd, broke Protocol 2. Left the north window covering partially open after 7:45 p.m. At 10:03 p.m., I heard vocalizations directly outside that window. I looked. One of them was standing less than 6 feet away, staring directly at me through the glass. I have never seen a coyote stand that still for that long. It did not blink the entire time I was watching. I closed the covering. The vocalizations continued for the next 4 hours. July 8th. I do not think they are coyotes. Coyotes do not organize like this. Coyotes do not coordinate like this. Coyotes do not respond to human behavior with this level of specificity. Something else is happening here. July 30th. Broke multiple protocols tonight because I needed to know. Left all coverings open. Left exterior lights on. I went outside at 10 p.m. and walked to the edge of the clearing. 41 of them, surrounding the entire station in a complete perimeter. I walked back inside and enforced every protocol perfectly. They stayed there until just before dawn. I could hear them vocalizing, all of them, overlapping, modulated in a way that sounded almost like communication. I have started sleeping during the day. August 15th, I asked Christine about the protocols today. She would not tell me why they exist. She would not tell me what happened here before I arrived. She just said, "Sullivan, if you want to finish this contract, or you follow those protocols and you stop testing them." I asked what happens if I do not. She said, "No one who has broken all of them has finished their contract." That was the first time she acknowledged that there have been others before me. The final entry was dated September 29th. September 29th. I am leaving this notebook, September 29th. I am leaving this notebook because whoever comes after me deserves to know what I know. The protocols are not arbitrary. They are specific behavioral restrictions designed to keep you unnoticed. If you follow them, you are not interesting. If you break them, you become interesting. And if you become interesting enough, they do not leave. I do not know what they are. I do not know what they want. But I know they are aware. I know they are organized. And I know the Forestry Service has known about them long enough to write protocols this specific. Follow the protocols. Do not end up like Peterson. The entry ended there. I read that last line 4 times. Peterson. That name was not in any of the documentation I had been given. I called Christine back immediately. "You found it." "Who is Peterson?" Silence. "Christine, who is Peterson?" "He was stationed at Ridgeway before Sullivan." "What happened to him?" "He did not finish his contract." "Where is he now?" The pause that followed told me everything. "We do not know, Blake. He stopped responding to radio check-ins in his 4th month. When we sent someone up to investigate, the station was empty. His belongings were still there. His vehicle was still parked at the trailhead. But Peterson was gone." "Did you search for him?" "For 3 weeks. We found nothing." "And you sent someone else to the same station afterward?" "The protocols were updated after Peterson. Section 7 was added to the handbook. Sullivan followed them. He finished his contract and transferred out with no incidents. He had incidents, Christine. He documented them. I am holding his notebook right now. Another long silence. Did Sullivan follow the protocols after he understood why they existed? Yes. Then he had no incidents. That is the point, Blake. Follow the protocols. Do not test them. Do not break them. What, and you will finish your contract the same way Sullivan did. What are they? I do not have that answer. I do not think anyone in this service has that answer. But we know they are there. We know they respond to specific behaviors. And we know the protocols work if they are followed. She paused. You have 6 weeks left. Follow Section 7 exactly as written. You will be fine. The radio went dead again. I followed the protocols after that. Perfectly. Every single night. No exceptions. No tests. The vocalizations continued. Sometimes I could hear movement outside. Branches snapping. The soft sound of many feet moving through the clearing. But I didn't look. I didn't open the coverings. I didn't turn on any light. I stayed inside in the dark, unnoticed. And after a while, the sounds became less frequent. So by the end of September, they had stopped almost entirely. I finished my contract on October 31st. Christine met me at the trailhead to drive me back to the regional station. She asked if I had any incidents in the final weeks. I told her no. She nodded. Good. That means the protocols worked. I asked her if she was going to send someone else to Ridgeway next season. We send someone every season, Blake. The position is necessary. The station has to be maintained. I asked if the person they send will be told the truth about why the protocols exist. She looked at me for a long moment. They will be told the same thing you were told. Follow the protocols. Do not test them. That is all anyone in that position needs to know. I left Sullivan's notebook in the station. I do not know if the next person found it. And I do not know if they broke the protocols the way I did. I do not know if they finished their contract. But I know the protocols are still there. I know Section 7 is still in the handbook. And I know that somewhere in a file I will never see, there is a document that explains exactly why those protocols exist, what those animals are, and what happened to Peterson when he broke the rules completely. The Forestry Service knows. They have always known. They just do not tell the people they send to Ridgeway Station. They give them the rules, and they wait to see who follows them. Story 2. I removed a lock from a door in my apartment because I thought it was unnecessary. That was in April. By June, I understood exactly why that lock had been there. By July, I knew I could not put it back. And by August, I realized the person who wrote my lease clause knew this would happen and had tried to prevent it anyway. The restriction was in Section 11 of my rental agreement, buried between the noise policy and the parking assignments. Tenant agrees to make no modifications to any interior door locks. All interior doors must remain in their current lockable state for the duration of tenancy. Removal, replacement, or disabling of any interior lock constitutes a material breach of lease terms. I read it twice when I signed. It seemed excessive, the kind of language landlords use to prevent tenants from changing the front door lock and forgetting to give them a key. But it said interior door locks, not the front door, not the windows, the doors inside the apartment. I should have asked why. My name is Isabel Trent, and I lived in apartment 2B at the Crescent View Apartments for 11 months. It was a small building, 16 units across 4 floors, 1960s construction, decent neighborhood. Rent was $715 a month, including heat. I moved in March 15th. The apartment had 3 interior doors, bedroom, bathroom, and a small storage closet off the kitchen. All 3 had locks, old ones. The kind with the push-button mechanism in the center of the knob that you could unlock from the outside with a pin if you needed to. The bathroom lock stuck constantly. You had to turn the knob at a specific angle while pushing the button, and even then, It only engaged about half the time. When it did engage, it sometimes would not release without jamming a screwdriver into the mechanism. I lived alone. I did not need a lock on the bathroom door. For 3 weeks after I moved in, I removed it. I didn't remove the entire handle, just the locking mechanism inside the knob. It took less than 10 minutes. I unscrewed the handle, popped out the lock cylinder, and reassembled the knob without it. The door still closed. The handle still turned. It just did not lock anymore. I put the lock cylinder in the kitchen junk drawer and forgot about it. That was April 9th. On April 11th, I met my neighbor. His name was Kenneth Vyers, and he lived in 2C, the unit directly next to mine. We shared a wall, the bathroom wall. I did not know that yet. I met him in the hallway while I was taking out trash. He was standing outside his door, checking his mail. Late 40s, thinning hair, wire frame glasses, polo shirt tucked into khakis. He smiled when he saw me. "Son, you must be the new tenant in 2B. I am Kenneth, 2C. I introduced myself. We talked for maybe 2 minutes. Standard neighbor small talk. "How long have you lived here? What do you do?" "The weather is finally getting warmer." He was polite, a little awkward, the kind of person who makes slightly too much eye contact and stands slightly too close when talking. But harmless. That was my assessment. I was wrong. The first time I noticed something off was April 18th. I came home from work around 6:15 p.m., and Kenneth was in the hallway again. He smiled. "You are home earlier than usual today." I stopped. "Earlier than usual?" "You normally get home around 6:45. I noticed because I usually hear your door around then." The walls, I thought. They must be thin. I smiled back, said something non-committal, and went into my apartment. But the comment stayed with me. "You normally get home around 6:45. He was tracking when I came home. Maybe not deliberately. Maybe just noticing. I told myself it was nothing. The second time was April 23rd. I saw Kenneth in the building lobby while I was leaving for my morning run. It was 6:50 a.m. He was standing near the mailboxes, holding a cup of coffee. "Early run today," he said. "You usually leave around 7:15 on Saturdays." I stared at him. I guess I wanted to get out before it got too warm. "That makes sense. Supposed to hit 78 this afternoon." He took a sip of his coffee. "You have been running every Saturday since you moved in. Same route, I assume? Down to the park and back?" I had not told him I ran to the park. "How did you— I see you come back from that direction. Takes you about 40 minutes usually." He smiled. I left without responding. That night, I started paying attention to the wall between my apartment and his, the bathroom wall. I turned off all the sound in my apartment, no TV, no music, no fans, and stood in the bathroom listening. I could hear everything from his side. Water running, the toilet flushing, the medicine cabinet opening and closing, footsteps. The walls were not just thin, they were functionally transparent to sound. Anything I did in my bathroom, he could hear in his. And anything he did in his, I could hear in mine. I started testing it. I would turn on the bathroom faucet and wait. Within 30 seconds, I would hear him moving on the other side of the wall. Not every time, but often enough. I would shower in the morning before work. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, I would hear him in his bathroom at the same time. Not showering, just there, on the other side of the wall. I could hear him breathing if I listened carefully enough. The third time was May 2nd. I was leaving my apartment to go to the grocery store, and Kenneth was in the hallway. Again. "Heading out?" he asked. "Yeah, just need to grab a few things." "Trader Joe's, right? You go every Sunday around this time." I felt my stomach tighten. "Kenneth, how do you know where I grocery shop?" "Oh, I have seen you coming back with their bags. I shop there too. Great prices on produce." He smiled. "You usually get back around 4:30. If you are looking for a parking spot when you return, the west side of the lot tends to open up around then." I went to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for 5 minutes before I started the engine. He knew my schedule. He knew where I shopped. He knew when I left and when I returned, and he was telling me he knew. I started changing my routine after that. I left for work at different times. I skipped my Saturday run, or I ran at different hours. I went to a different grocery store. And every time I saw Kenneth in the hallway, which was often, far more often than random chance should allow, he noticed. "Different morning today. Skipped your run this week. Trying out a new store?" He always smiled when he said it, like we were sharing something, like he was letting me know he was paying attention. May 9th, I was in my bathroom getting ready for bed. It was 10:35 p.m. I heard him on the other side of the wall, in his bathroom. I froze. I had not made any noise. I had not turned on the water. I had just walked into the bathroom and closed the door. And within 10 seconds, he was there. I stood completely still and listened. He was not using the sink. He was not using the toilet. He was just standing there, on the other side of the wall, waiting. I waited too. 3 minutes passed. I heard him shift his weight. Then I heard something else. A small sound. Metal on metal. Like he was holding something against the wall. I left the bathroom and did not go back in for the rest of the night. The next morning, I examined the wall in my bathroom. It was standard drywall. White paint. Nothing unusual. Then I looked at the wall in his bathroom from the hallway outside our units. The layout was identical. Our bathrooms shared the same wall, mirrored on either side. I went back into my apartment and looked at the wall again. There was a small discoloration near the floor, barely visible. A spot where the paint was slightly darker, like it had been patched and repainted, but the color had not matched perfectly. I crouched down and looked closer. There was a hole. Tiny. Maybe the diameter of a pencil. Drilled through the drywall at ankle height, positioned behind where the bathroom trash can would normally sit. I moved the trash can. The hole went all the way through. I could see light from his bathroom on the other side. I called the landlord that afternoon. His name was Mr. Gephardt, late 60s. Owned the building for 30 years. "Mr. Gephardt, there is a hole in my bathroom wall. It goes all the way through to the next unit." Silence. "What?" "A hole. Drilled through the wall. I can see into my neighbor's apartment." "Which wall?" "The one I share with 2C. The silence that followed was much longer. "Miss Trent, did you remove the lock from your bathroom door?" My stomach dropped. Yes, it was broken. I took out the locking mechanism. How did you? When? April, early April. Why does that? Stay in your apartment. I am coming over right now. The line went dead. Mr. Gephardt arrived 40 minutes later. He inspected the hole. He did not say anything for a long time. Then, "This was not here when you moved in." "No. This was drilled recently." "Yes." He stood up and looked at me. "The lease clause about the interior locks. You read it when you signed?" I did. "And you removed the bathroom lock anyway." It was broken. I live alone. I did not think that clause exists because of Mr. Veers. Mr. Gephardt told me the rest in my kitchen. Kenneth Veers had lived in 2C for 9 years. He had always been attentive to his neighbors. The previous tenant in my unit, a woman named Laura Milson, had filed a complaint in her 8th month of tenancy. Mr. Veers was tracking her schedule, appearing in common areas whenever she left or returned, making comments that indicated he knew more about her routine than he should. She had felt unsafe. Mr. Gebhardt had spoken to Mr. Veers. Mr. Veers apologized, said he was just being friendly, said he would give her space. The behavior stopped for a while. Then Laura started hearing sounds in her bathroom late at night. Sounds from the other side of the wall, like someone was listening. She checked the wall. She found a hole, drilled through from his side. She broke her lease immediately and moved out. Mr. Gebhardt confronted Mr. Veers. Mr. Veers denied it, said the hole must have been there before he moved in, said he had never noticed it. There was no proof, no witness to him drilling it, no way to prove when the hole had been made. Mr. Gebhardt patched the wall from both sides. He could not evict Mr. Veers without proof of lease violation or criminal activity, but he could protect the next tenant. The lock clause was added to your lease specifically because of this situation, Mr. Gebhardt said. If the bathroom door is locked, it does not matter if he can hear through the wall. He cannot see in. He cannot access the space. The lock creates a boundary. But I removed it. Yes. And he knew. Mr. Gebhardt nodded slowly. The bathroom is the only interior room in these units where the door can be fully closed and locked. It is the only space in your apartment where you have complete privacy from someone listening through a shared wall. The lease was not about preventing me from changing locks. No. It was about making sure I kept them functional. Yes. Why did you not just tell me that when I signed? Mr. Gebhardt looked at me for a long time. Because if I disclosed that your neighbor has a documented history of intrusive behavior, you would not have rented the unit. No one would. And I cannot afford to leave a unit vacant indefinitely because one tenant makes people uncomfortable, but has not committed a crime. So you wrote a clause and hoped I would follow it. Yes. And when I did not, you did not warn me. He did not respond to that. I asked if he was going to evict Mr. Veers now that there was a new hole. I will try, but he will deny it. And unless you saw him drill it, I cannot prove it happened after you moved in. He will say it was there before, the same thing he said last time. So he just stays. Unless he does something that constitutes a criminal act or a clear lease violation I can document, yes, he stays. And I live next to him. You can break your lease. I will not pursue you for the remaining rent. Or you put the lock back on the bathroom door. You avoid him, and you wait out your lease term. I put the lock back on the bathroom door that night. It's still stuck. It's still jammed. But I used it. Every single time. I heard Kenneth on the other side of the wall sometimes. I knew he was listening, but he could not see in anymore. Mr. Gebhardt patched the hole from both sides the next day. Kenneth did not acknowledge it. He still appeared in the hallway. He still made comments. You have been keeping your bathroom door closed more. Finally got that lock working? I did not respond. I found out later, from another tenant, that there had been someone before Laura, a woman who had lived in 2B 3 years prior. She had also complained about Kenneth. She had also found a hole in the wall. She had also broken her lease. That tenant's lease had not included the lock clause. The clause was added after she left. It was added to protect the next person. Laura had kept her bathroom lock functional for 7 months. Then it broke completely, and she removed it to replace it. She found the hole 2 weeks later. I had removed mine voluntarily, because I did not understand what it was for. I finished my lease term in February. I did not renew. Kenneth was in the hallway the day I moved out. He watched the movers carry my furniture to the truck. He did not say anything until I was walking to my car for the last time. It was nice having you as a neighbor, Isabel. I did not respond. Whoever moves in next, I hope they are just as pleasant. I got in my car. I left. I have not been back. I do not know if anyone has moved into 2B since I left. I do not know if Mr. Gayfart is still including the lock clause in the lease. I do not know if the next tenant will follow it. But I know Kenneth Veers is still in 2C. I know the wall between the units is still thin enough to hear everything. And I know the bathroom lock is the only thing standing between privacy and something much worse. The clause was not about controlling tenants. It was about protecting them from someone the landlord could not remove. And I broke it because I did not know what it was for. By the time I understood, it was already too late to prevent what I had made possible. I could only lock the door and hope that was enough. Story 3. My grandmother left me a house. She also left me a list. I thought the house was the inheritance. I was wrong. The list was. I found her body on a Tuesday afternoon in March. She was sitting in her reading chair, hands folded in her lap, eyes closed. Peaceful. The coroner said she had been gone for approximately 18 hours. Natural causes. Heart failure. 87 years old. Nothing unusual, except for the envelope she was holding. It had my name on it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten, with 8 numbered instructions and a final sentence at the bottom that I did not understand until it was too late. My name is Renata Sowell. My grandmother, Edith Sowell, raised me from the age of 9 after my parents passed in an accident I do not remember and have never asked about. She lived in a house on Vander Lane in a small town called Millbrook, 60 miles from anywhere that would show up on a map anyone cared about. The house was old, built in 1921. 3 stories, Victorian frame, wraparound porch, the kind of house that photographs well, but requires constant maintenance to keep from falling apart. My grandmother had lived there alone for 43 years after my grandfather passed. I spent my childhood in that house. I thought I knew it. I did not. The list was written in her handwriting. The careful, slightly slanted script she had used for grocery lists and birthday cards, and the notes she left on my pillow when I was a child. It was addressed to me specifically. Renata, if you are reading this, I am gone, and the house is yours. You will want to sell it. I understand. But before you do, you must follow these instructions exactly. They are not suggestions. They are not superstition. They are the terms of your inheritance, and they must be obeyed. 1. Do not enter the 3rd floor between sunset and sunrise. The door at the top of the stairs must remain closed and locked during those hours. The key is in the blue dish on the hallway table. Use it every evening before dark. Do not forget. 2. The basement door must never be opened after 9 p.m. If you hear sounds from the basement after that hour, you will ignore them completely. Do not respond. Do not investigate. Do not open the door. 3. The mirror in the guest bedroom on the 2nd floor must remain covered at all times. There is a cloth draped over it. Do not remove the cloth. Do not look into the mirror. If the cloth falls, replace it immediately without looking at the glass. 4. If you hear your name called from a room you are not in, do not answer. Do not go to that room. Wait until the voice stops. It will stop. 5. The window in my bedroom, your bedroom now, must be closed and latched by 8 p.m. every night. Does not matter how warm it is. It does not matter how much you want fresh air. Close the window. Latch it. Do not open it again until full daylight. 6. There is a cabinet in the kitchen painted green. Do not open it. I have never opened it. My mother never opened it. It has been sealed since before I was born. Leave it sealed. 7. If you wake in the night and feel that you are not alone in the room, do not open your eyes. Do not speak. Do not move. Breathe slowly and wait. It will leave. 8. Do not stay in this house for more than 3 consecutive nights without leaving for at least 24 hours. Break the pattern. Always break the pattern. Below the numbered list, she had written one final line. I kept these rules for 43 years. I never broke them. That is why I lived long enough to write this letter. Follow them, Renata, or do not stay in this house at all. At the bottom of the page, in smaller script, I am sorry I never told you. I thought I was protecting you. I was wrong. You needed to know. Forgive me. I read the list 4 times standing in her living room. Then I folded it, put it back in the envelope, and set it on the hallway table next to the blue dish with the key inside. I told myself it was grief, confusion at the end, the fears of an old woman who had lived alone too long in a house too big for one person. I did not believe the list was real. Not then. The funeral was 3 days later. Small. Quiet. The minister from the church she had attended every Sunday for 50 years. A handful of neighbors. No family except me. Afterward, people offered condolences and casseroles and told me what a wonderful woman she had been. Then they left, and I went back to the house on Vander Lane alone. The first night, I did not follow the list. Not deliberately. I simply did not think about it. I was exhausted from grief and logistics, and the weight of suddenly owning a house I had not lived in for 15 years. I made tea in the kitchen. I sat in her reading chair. I watched the light fade through the windows without tracking the time. At some point, I realized it was fully dark outside. I had not locked the 3rd floor door. I had not closed and latched the bedroom window. I had not even looked at the list since putting it down that morning. I told myself it did not matter. I went upstairs to bed. I woke at 2:17 a.m. The room was dark. The house was silent. But I was not alone. I knew it immediately. The way you know someone is standing behind you before you turn around. The way you know you are being watched before you see the eyes. I was lying on my back, facing the ceiling, and something was in the room with me. I could not see it. I could not hear it. But I could feel it, near the foot of the bed, standing there, waiting. I remembered instruction number 7. If you wake in the night and feel that you are not alone in the room, do not open your eyes. Do not speak. Do not move. Breathe slowly and wait. It will leave. My eyes were already open, and I had already broken half the rule. I closed them immediately. I forced my breathing to slow. I did not move. I waited. Minutes passed. Maybe 5. Maybe 15. Time does not work correctly at 2 a.m. when something is standing at the foot of your bed. Then the feeling lifted, like a weight being removed from the room, like pressure equalizing after your ears pop. Whatever had been there was gone. I did not open my eyes again until I saw daylight through my eyelids. I read the list again that morning. I read it 5 times. Then I started following it. The 3rd floor door was at the top of a narrow staircase at the end of the 2nd floor hallway. I had been up there as a child. It was an attic space, unfinished, dusty, filled with old furniture and boxes and things that had been stored there for generations. And I did not remember it being unusual. But my grandmother's instructions were specific. Do not enter the 3rd floor between sunset and sunrise. I took the key from the blue dish. I climbed the stairs to the 2nd floor. I walked to the end of the hallway. The door was closed. I locked it. The lock was old, a heavy iron mechanism that required the key to be turned twice before it engaged. It clicked into place. I went back downstairs. That evening, I closed and latched the bedroom window at 7:45 p.m., 15 minutes early. I did not go near the basement. I did not touch the green cabinet in the kitchen. I did not look at the covered mirror in the guest bedroom. I followed every instruction. And that night, I slept until morning without waking once. I stayed for 2 nights. Then I left for 28 hours per instruction number 8. I drove to a hotel in the city. I did not sleep well there either, but at least the room felt empty when I woke in the middle of the night. Then I went back to Vander Lane. The pattern held for the first 2 weeks. I followed the instructions. I did not break them. And the house was manageable. Old, creaky, full of sounds I could not identify, but manageable. I started to believe that maybe my grandmother had simply codified her anxieties into rules, that following them was a way of honoring her memory rather than protecting myself from anything real. The thing at the foot of the bed that first night could have been a dream. Sleep paralysis, grief, an overactive imagination in an unfamiliar space. I had followed the rules since then. Nothing else had happened. I began to relax. That was my mistake. March 29th. I had been at the house for 12 days total. Never more than 3 consecutive nights, always following the instructions. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard it. My name. Renata. Soft. Distant. Coming from somewhere upstairs. My grandmother's voice. I froze. The stove was still on. The water was still boiling. I stood there holding a wooden spoon and listening. Renata. Again. Clearer this time. Coming from the 2nd floor. The guest bedroom. Instruction number 4. If you hear your name called from a room you are not in, do not answer. Do not go to that room. Wait until the voice stops. It will stop. I put down the spoon. I turned off the stove. I stood in the kitchen and waited. Renata. My grandmother's voice. The exact tone she had used when I was a child, and she was calling me in for dinner. The exact warmth. The exact cadence. I wanted to answer. I wanted to go upstairs and find her sitting in the guest bedroom, alive. This whole thing a misunderstanding. But I did not. I waited. The voice called twice more. Then it stopped. I did not go upstairs until the next morning. When I checked the guest bedroom, the cloth was still draped over the mirror. Nothing had changed. But I understood now. The instructions were not grief. They were not superstition. They were the only reason my grandmother had survived in this house for 43 years. April 7th, I broke instruction number 1, not deliberately. I was cleaning the 2nd floor, sorting through closets, boxing items for donation. I'm trying to make the house feel less like a museum and more like something I might actually be able to live in or sell. I lost track of time. The sun was setting when I finally looked out the window. I checked my phone. 7:52 p.m. The 3rd floor door was supposed to be locked before sunset. Sunset that day was 7:38 p.m. I was 14 minutes late. I grabbed the key from the blue dish and ran to the end of the hallway. The door was closed, but the lock was not engaged. I had locked it that morning. I was certain I had locked it. But when I tried the handle, the door opened. The staircase beyond was dark. The attic space above was darker still. I could not see anything past the first 3 steps. I reached for the light switch on the wall inside the door. I flipped it. Nothing. The bulb was dead, or the power to that floor wasn't connected. I stood in the doorway looking up into the darkness. Something looked back. I could not see it. I could not hear it. But I felt it. The same presence I had felt at the foot of my bed that first night. Except stronger now. Closer. Like it had been waiting at the top of those stairs for 14 minutes, knowing the door was not locked, knowing I would come. I slammed the door shut. I locked it, turned the key twice until I heard both clicks. I backed away from the door and did not take my eyes off it until I reached the main staircase. Then I went downstairs and did not go back to the second floor until morning. April 14th, I broke instruction number 2, the basement. I had been ignoring the basement entirely. There was no reason to go down there. And the instruction about not opening the door after 9 p.m. had made it easy to avoid. But I needed to check the water heater. The hot water had been inconsistent for days. The water heater was in the basement. It was 8:47 p.m. I had 13 minutes before the restriction kicked in. I opened the basement door and descended the stairs. The basement was exactly what I expected. Low ceiling, concrete floor, exposed pipes, and ductwork. The water heater in the corner. Shelving units stacked with old paint cans and tools and boxes of things that had been forgotten decades ago. I checked the water heater. Pilot light was on. Thermostat was set correctly. I could not find anything wrong. I checked my phone. 8:56 p.m., 4 minutes. I headed back toward the stairs. That is when I saw the door. It was in the far corner of the basement, behind a shelving unit that partially blocked it from view. A wooden door, painted black. No handle on this side. I had never noticed it before. I walked toward it. 8:58 p.m. I pushed the shelving unit aside. The door was set into the wall at a slight angle, not quite flush, like the wall had been built around it rather than with it. There was a small brass plate where a handle should have been, but no handle. And there was writing on the door, scratched into the black paint. Old, faded, but still legible. Do not, that was all. Just those 2 words. 8:59 p.m. I stepped back from the door, and I heard something on the other side. Not a knock, not a voice, a pressure, like something very large leaning against the door from the other side. The wood creaked. The frame shifted slightly. Whatever was behind that door was pressing against it. I backed toward the stairs. I did not run. I walked steadily backward, keeping my eyes on the door. The pressure continued. The creaking continued. But the door held. I climbed the stairs. I closed the basement door. I locked it. There was a deadbolt I had never used before. I checked my phone. 9:03 p.m. I did not sleep that night. I sat in the living room with every light on, listening for sounds from the basement. I heard them. Low, rhythmic, sustained, like something pacing, back and forth, for hours. The sound stopped at 6:14 a.m. I did not open the basement door again. April 19th. I opened the green cabinet. I do not know why. After everything I had experienced, after following the instructions, after understanding that they were real and necessary, and the only thing keeping me safe, I still opened it. Maybe I needed to know what was inside. Maybe I thought, if I understood what my grandmother had been protecting me from, I could protect myself better. Maybe I was just tired of being afraid of a cabinet in my own kitchen. I opened it. It was empty, mostly. The shelves had been removed. The interior walls had been painted black, the same black as the basement door. And there was something scratched into the back wall of the cabinet. Writing. The same handwriting as my grandmother's list, but older, faded, like it had been there for decades. It came with the house. It was here before we were. It will be here after we are gone. Do not feed it. Do not speak to it. Do not acknowledge it. It wants to be seen. That is how it gets in. The rules keep it out. Follow them, always. If you break them, it will know. If it knows, it will try harder. It does not stop trying. Below that, in different handwriting, older, shakier. My mother wrote the rules. I added to them. Whoever lives here next, we'll add to them too. The list grows because it learns. It finds new ways. We find new rules. This is the arrangement. This is how we survive. At the very bottom, in handwriting I did not recognize at all, 1921. It was already here when we built this house. We did not know. We found out. 3 of us did not survive the finding out. The rest wrote the first rules. Follow them. Add to them when necessary. Never stop following them. I closed the cabinet. I did not open it again. I left the house that night. I drove to a hotel. I stayed for 3 days instead of 24 hours. I thought about selling the house. I thought about never going back. But I kept thinking about what was written in that cabinet. It was here before we were. It will be here after we are gone. If I sold the house, whoever bought it would not have the list. They would not know the rules. They would not survive. I went back on April 23rd. I have been following the instructions ever since, every single one. I have added 2 new rules of my own. 9. Do not open the green cabinet. Ever. The knowledge inside will not help you. It will only make you more afraid. 10. If you find the basement door unlocked in the morning, when you know you locked it the night before, leave the house immediately. Do not take anything. Do not look back. Don't return until the next sunset. I have followed Rule 10 3 times in the past 6 months. I'm still living in the house. I don't know if I will stay forever. I don't know if I will ever sell it. But I know the list is real. I know my grandmother kept me alive for 43 years by following rules she never explained to me, because she thought not knowing would protect me. She was wrong. Not knowing almost got me killed that first night. I was lucky. I woke up. I closed my eyes. I waited. Whatever was at the foot of my bed left, but it did not go far. It is still here, in this house, waiting, following its own set of rules, rules I do not fully understand, rules that seem to change when I am not paying attention. My grandmother's list is the only map I have. 8 instructions, on plus 2 of my own. 10 rules between me and whatever has been living in this house since 1921. I follow them every single day. I do not forget. I do not get lazy. I do not tell myself it does not matter. Because I know what happens when you stop following the rules. You become the next entry on the list, or you become the reason someone else has to write one. The stories in this video are done. Something worth knowing before you close this. Houses in the United States are not legally required to come with disclosure of previous incidents, unless those incidents meet very specific definitions of material defects under state law. In most jurisdictions, that definition covers structural issues, environmental hazards, and certain documented crimes. It does not cover unexplained events. It does not cover previous owner complaints that were never formally investigated. It does not cover whatever arrangements previous residents may have made to coexist with something they could not explain. If you inherit or purchase a property and find documents, lists, or instructions left by previous occupants about how to behave in certain rooms at certain times, those instructions were not written casually. They were written because someone learned something about that space the hard way. You are not required to follow them, but the people who wrote them thought you should, and they had their reasons. Before you go, I always check the comments after these, not for numbers, because someone always finds something in the real record I missed. What did I miss? Tell me. Subscribe if you have not already. Notifications on. The next video is already being built. The like button is right there. If this kept you up, use it. It matters more than you know. We'll see you in our next story.